Hi everyone, Bill Duvendack here, and I am happy to be here with Oak Spirit Sanctuary's Festival. It's always nice to see all of you. In this presentation, I want to talk a little bit about how to do magic during social distancing. Now, it's really kind of funny because I see a lot of people that say that they're missing their hugs, or with the restrictions in place, it's hard to make a person-to-person connection with others. First of all, if you're missing the hugs, I get it. The world needs more love and unity and less divisiveness. So I feel you. Now, that's about the beginning and the end of it. Otherwise, things haven't changed. Let me take you on a little story. So for those of you that have been to my presentations before, then you know what's coming. It's story time with Uncle Bill. Many, many years ago, before social media, when video conferencing online was just getting started, I saw a lot of criticisms by a lot of people that just did not know any better. And their criticisms were basically to the extent of, if I'm not sitting across the table from them in the tarot reading, they're not connecting with my energy, so I don't trust these tarot readings that are done on video conferencing thousands of miles away. How are they connecting with my energy? Another variation of this that came on a little bit later were people that were doing Reiki. And it was the same argument. Well, we're not in the room. Their hands are not on me. It's through computer lines. So how do I know that it works? It doesn't work because there's no intimate connection. There's a problem with both of those two criticisms, other than the fact that they're wrong. As I have said for decades now, and people for decades, if not centuries before me, have said the same thing, there's no such thing as time, distance, and space on the other side of the veil. What that means is that on the other side of the veil, distance doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. For those of you that are Star Wars fans, you saw a glimpse of this philosophy in The Empire Strikes Back in the early 80s, where Yoda lifted Luke's X-Wing out of the bog on Dagobah and reminded Luke, size doesn't matter. Cue comments. So therefore, it doesn't matter if you're in person getting a reading or you're getting one online. Therefore, it doesn't matter if someone is doing Reiki work with you through video like Skype or Zoom or whatnot, or if they're in the room. Would the connection be better and stronger and probably more meaningful if it was done in person? Well, of course, we're people. That intimate connection really does matter. It does make a difference to a lot of people. So yes, I completely agree that in person is always better. We're in physical form, so we should be exploring and enjoying the physical side of what we are dealing with. But that's not always an option. When we are in situations like we're in now, where all we have is video work, then we should remember the metaphysics of it. Namely, the distance is irrelevant. So that's piece number one to the puzzle. Distance doesn't matter. So if you are social distancing at, say, a community ritual, following your local and state guidelines, of course, you've probably got a good 3 feet away from others or more, depending on where you're at. You can still energetically connect with them. Newsflash. You can still reach out your psychic senses and feel the edge of their aura. So social distancing doesn't really matter. It just, I'm sorry, it doesn't. But this brings us to point number two. a lot of people see this time as a very negative time because of all the infections and death. And I am not going to disagree. I've lost over half a dozen friends to the current epidemic that is going around. For those of you that think it's not real, I'm sorry, you're wrong. That's just the way it is. It is real, and it's affecting millions of people all over the planet. But there are some positives to come out of this. Number one, which has been talked about to death on social media, is the fact that now we get a lot more alone time to focus on us. And most people I see, it's making better, but there are some people that have psychological problems, and this is feeding their depression. So in that case, it is making it worse. Personally, I would like to see resources available for them, but at least in the US, the government can't even get its shit together to manage a response, so there's not going to be any resources coming. Which means now community is more important than ever, ironically enough. The positives on this are spending more time alone and doing your inner work. But there's another positive on this. Let's say you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, I've tried to sense other people's energies and I just can't. It's a gift I don't have. Well, guess what? In this time of social distancing, you've got plenty of time to develop your skills on how to do it. Everybody can sense energy. Don't believe me? Listen to your heartbeat. Another example, you want to sense energy? Have a discussion with a loved one and sense their emotions. You could probably do it. Everybody can sense energy to a certain degree. This is a time for improving that skill if you're not very good at it, because you kind of have to rely on it in the example I gave before. So not only is this a great time to go within, this is also a great time to get better at sensing energy. Now, once you get sufficiently skilled at sensing energy, then you can move on to projecting energy in a better fashion or a stronger fashion than before and see if others pick up on it. So the underlying principle here to work with is the astral plane and the manipulation of the unseen side of life. In that way, we find ourselves at a third positive point of this time, which is the culling process. There's going to be those that can step up within themselves and improve on these points that I have mentioned, and there's going to be those people that don't. And I say don't, not can't, because it is very much don't, not can't. All of us can step up. It's just whether or not we prioritize to do so. And that is a subjective decision to make. So there's three good things that are coming out of this current situation that we find ourselves in. So what else? Well, for those of you that work with psychic protection and psychic self-defense techniques, now's the time to use them more. Now's the time to carry your stones. If you're not doing it already, you got that little pouch of unakite, labradorite, and black tourmaline with a piece of smoky quartz and rutilated quartz for a little extra oomph. Toss it in your pocket. Maybe when you go to the store, everybody's wearing a mask, which is healthy, and they should be doing. If you go out and about and you're already one of those people that has a vibration that like attracts like to that degree, and people are already wearing masks, great, then you don't have to really worry about the psychic protection side of it. But there's a lot of people out there that I see on social media that go to shops and are irate that people are choosing to be toxic potential murderers than wear a fucking mask. Those are the people that need the stones for psychic protection and psychic self-defense. And it's not that they need it as in there's something wrong with them. They need it as in to get all that crap off of them so they stay healthy. Psychic self-defense, psychic protection techniques. If you're not doing your banishings, now is a great time to do your banishings. Everything I've been talking about so far is energy manipulation. The banishing ritual of the pentagram, the banishing rituals of the hexagram are all about energy manipulation. So now's a great time to do them on a regular basis, once, twice a day. Do it more often. If you get back from the shop and everybody there was choosing to be toxic instead of wearing a mask, then do a banishing when you get home to get all that crap off you. See, that's the key. And that's what I meant when I mentioned the astral plane. Now it's all about energy manipulation. Now it's all about energy sensitivity and energy protection. See, before all this, you could get away with just your physical presence. But now the focus is on the energetic side, not the physical side. So all of us, everyone, is in the same position of being encouraged to sharpen their energetic manipulation skills. I encourage you to do so. That's a huge positive. Something else that can be done in this time is strengthen community. Now, I mentioned that earlier, and I'm going to circle back to it now, because there's a lot of people that may not be handling this time well for various reasons, and it could be resulting in depression or frustration. Now's the time to reach out to them. You call them a friend, well, check on them. Friends check on each other. If you're one of those that needs help, reach out to your community. Don't suffer alone. That's the silliest thing you can do. You're guilty of a martyr complex. And in the process, you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Reach out to your loved ones. And here's the thing. If they step up and they help you, you're going to be thankful for it. And those bonds of community strengthen. If you do this and no one responds, then it's time to find a new community. And remember what I said, now it's all about energy manipulation and energetic connection. What that means is you may be in a small rural area where there's only one community. You reach out to them during this time. They give you no support. You may think, well, there's nobody else in the area. That's the most disempowered, defeatist thought you can think of, because you're 100% right. It may not be in the area, but there's this little thing called the internet. And if you're watching this, you're privileged enough to have it and use it. And if everything's energy, like we're talking about, that Tesla talked about, that Einstein talked about, the thinkers before them talked about, then your community doesn't even have to be physically local anymore. That's how much things have changed in the age of social media. Over the last 10 to 12 years, there has been a dynamic shift into more of the digital realm. On one hand, that's the thinning of the veil between the physical world and the astral world. But on the other hand, it allows connections like this. Maybe your tribe, as people like to call it, is not in your home state or not in your home country. Now, when all of this is settled and done, and it will be, it might make physically going to meet these people difficult because you connected with a tribe that was not in your backyard. But that's why we have goals. That's why we have discipline. That's why we have goal setting. That's why we have forward motion and progress, to put yourself in a position to take those trips. Can everybody do it? No. But you know what? Now with everything that's going on, one of the barriers that has shattered is fear of technology. In some ways, though, it's kind of funny because a lot of people would say it has been increased. But no, not really. The same technophobes now are the same technophobes from before. Case in point, with a lot more classes and educational services being online, a lot of schools in certain areas have gone to their experienced teachers and said, we're going to this virtual platform if you choose not to evolve. then we'll give you an early buyout for retirement. So you see how this time is breaking the barrier. It's no longer like it was 10 years ago, where if I have to, I'll do a video coven meeting. If I have to, I'll do a video ritual. No, those thought forms are dying. They're dying fast. I'm watching them every month change, and it makes me happy. So think about it. What's best for you? But the secret is to think in energy terms, which your elders have been telling you for decades, which my elders told me for decades, which their elders told them, or they learned them from elders that had been talking about it for decades or centuries. Everything's energy, and this time is driving the point home. This time is a period of evolution. Now is the time to say, okay, well, all I have are these technological, energetic resources. I guess I should get my butt in gear or quit bitching. See, that's the other key. A lot of people that are complaining are not putting in the effort to better their lives and themselves. I hope all this is making sense. I'm going to keep going for a little bit longer. If I was there in person, I'd ask if anybody had any questions, but hey, that's what we got social media for. You can put them in the comments of the various places that this is posted, and I will check in on them from time to time, because I think this is an important conversation that needs to be had. At this point, it's probably been 5 to 10 years ago or so, I wrote an essay that's available on my Etsy shop, and I think it's on my website too, about such times. And it was called A Nazi's Brain. And it was all about the fact that the internet is the lowest precipitated point of the astral plane, and the more the internet gets worked with, the more that barrier between the physical and the astral gets thinned to the degree that eventually it just ceases to exist. And what I'm talking about now, and what all of us are experiencing right now, kind of validates that I was right those many years ago, and I've got the proof to back it up. So what this means is now is the time to embrace the extra tools that have been unveiled for you. Now's the time to embrace the fact that it's easier to work with energy than it has been in the past. In the past, if you were in person with someone and you did a good job of receiving and sending energy, and they did not have the gift for sensing energy, then it could lead to a frustrated situation, and people would generally not pursue any energy development past that point, or at least they would not engage with the other person to work on their energy development skills. So if you're in a small community, you can see how that would probably stunt your spiritual and energetic growth, and for who knows how long. Nowadays, it's not like that. Nowadays, if you go to one digital platform and you find a tribe there and you try your energetic skills and they don't work or nobody connects with them, well then with the touch of a button, you just go to a different one and you try them out there. And if that works, great. If it doesn't work, you go on to the next one. See, that's a secret here with all of this energy manipulation and veil thinning that I'm talking about. One thing that this time also does is expose. In this context, it exposes groups all over the planet to people all over the planet. And sometimes groups that you thought were quality end up being fraudulent, and sometimes groups that you thought were beyond your reach are now within your grasp. So there's no reason not to get what you want. It's really that simple. If you are privileged enough to be able to watch this, then you have internet connectivity, so you can search till your heart's content to find a tribe. Now, I've been talking about community here and groups and the whole. Let's talk about the solitary. And that's about it. It's hard to be solitary if you're sitting behind a computer watching a video on some teaching and you see comments. It's hard to be solitary in a fully integrated world. It's hard to be solitary if I just gave you every idea on not to be solitary. Now, I'm not saying solitary is bad, don't get me wrong. I've been working with this spirituality and occultism for 30 plus years. And about half that time I've been solitary. So I'm not mocking anything. What I'm saying is, if you're a solitary practitioner, then really nothing's changed. I'm sorry, it just hasn't. You got to wear a mask when you go out to protect yourself and protect others. Okay, next. If you're truly solitary, you wouldn't care. So in that way, nothing's changed. The only change, and this is debatable, but think about it. The only change for a solitary practitioner is now there might be a lot of people that were heavily involved in group work that are now coming around to your way of thinking in saying that you don't have to be physically present there to still send energy to a goal or a target. So in that way, it's actually a boon for the solitaries, because more people that generally do group work are going to see that, oh, I can be solitary in my own home or in my own town. But on the internet, I can be in a group. Or I can be solitary in my hometown. I don't have to engage on the internet. See where I'm saying here? It's pretty awesome, really. I mean, the tragedy of everything we're dealing with is not awesome, obviously, and my heart goes out to those that need the healing. But by that same token, a lot of chains and a lot of boundaries are being destroyed, or at least rearranged in the process. Now, so far, I have spoken about everything having to do with the COVID-19 situation. In the US, and it is spreading out to other parts of the world. For those of you on Facebook, you saw my pictures of the systematic racism sign that I saw when I was in Amsterdam a few weeks ago. So let's take a little bit to talk about social justice. It's tricky here, because with social justice, it gets everybody who's compassionate. It gets their heartstrings pulled. It tugs at the emotions, as it should. This is a subject to be fired up about. The problem is you can't let your emotions cloud your judgment. So with regards to social injustice situations, this is a positive opportunity, not just to create changes in the system, but to exercise control of emotions, to exercise clarity of thought, to remember the order of the planes. The mind is higher than the emotional, to follow your heart, follow your intuition, and to lead with your head. So your intuition says systematic racism is bullshit, I'm against it, I'm going to do what I can against it. And the head says, okay, what's the most effective way to do that? How do we do that? And the heart, of course, comes back and says, it doesn't matter what we do as long as we do it, because this is bullshit. And the mind says, well, bullshit as it may. You have to take care of yourself first and foremost. So how do we juggle this? How do we still help that right cause and still make sure our needs are met? See, with a social justice situation, you get a chance to improve your mental plane skills. You get a chance to improve your mind skills. You get a chance to work with logic, to work with abstract thought, but also to work with people skills, to work with using the mind as a weapon. In the early part of this century, there was a lot of emphasis that was placed on the idea of law of attraction through different products that were out there, like the movie The Secret and a lot of related things. I don't really think I have to explain this to many of you. In addition to all of the problems that were talked about at that time, another problem was that everybody became reliant and 100% focused on their emotions. If they got emotionally vested in visualizing something, then it would attract to them. Somehow the mind got lost in the process. You can sit on a couch and lust for something all you want, but if you're not out in the streets or in the internet or wherever, getting the resources together to make that happen, then it's just not gonna happen. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Results take work. Now is the time to balance that out. Now is the time to apply the mind, because for anybody that watches the media, you see what out of control emotions do. You see the results that come from that. Now is the time to apply the mind and say, I know what my heart wants. Now, how do we make it happen? That's a different answer for every person, because the way you might choose to engage to make those changes happen may not be the same way that others choose to do it. As long as all are effective, it's irrelevant. That's the key. Personal karma is a personal situation, which is why I'm not going to touch on it here, but do keep that in mind. Not everybody has to fight injustices the same way. If you believe everybody has to fight injustices the same way, then you're using fascist thinking, meaning you're part of the problem. And I don't mean fascist here as the political party. I actually mean the dictionary definition of fascist, meaning closed-minded, absolute. There's more than one way to fight social injustice. There's more than one way to reach spiritual enlightenment. And anybody who tells you it's their way or the highway is the problem. Keep that in mind when you're dealing with all of this. So with regards to the COVID-19 situation, I've talked about the energetic side of it. With regards to the social justice situation that's going on, I've talked about the mental side of it. So you can see that the common parallel between the two subjects, which has been talked about ad infinitum, is you, obviously, but it's also your heart and your mind. The same two things it always comes down to. So, how in tune are you between your heart and your mind? Do you have them firing together in unison? Are they working on the same level? Are they out of sorts? Do you have too much emotions and not enough logic? Do you have too much logic and not enough emotions? Any imbalance, one way or the other, is going to make what you're doing fairly ineffective. You want to harmonize those, but I'm not the one to tell you how to harmonize those. You got to figure it out for yourself, because the way I harmonize them are probably not the same way you harmonize them, and therefore my techniques would not work for you. And conversely, your techniques might not work for me. This is part of the subjective side. So evaluate what you're doing with both COVID-19 and social justice that's going on. And finally, the final piece of the puzzle that I want to throw out there for consideration is the fact that most of this is astrologically timed. Through the end of the year, Mars is going to be in Aries, and for a decent amount of that, Mars is going to be retrograde. When Mars is retrograde, oftentimes there are things happening behind the scenes that we don't know about. Now, couple this with the fact that we've got Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn all at the end of Capricorn / beginning of Aquarius. And the closer they draw to those final degrees of Capricorn, the more severe manifestations will be. And what we see, especially in the US in context of the upcoming election and the Pluto return, is that this is a very powerful yet dangerous time. And it's going to be this way for a few years. I'm not going to lie. For those of you that saw my 2020 video, I said as late as 2025, and talk in astrological circles lately has been extending that out to maybe even 2028 for different reasons. So it won't be the same problems, but there will still be issues that come up through 2028. So we're looking at almost another decade of this. And I just felt the collective sigh right there, with a million little voices calling out and saying, oh, but I'm done with it now. Sigh, that's depressing. Well, if you believe in the illusion of security, it's depressing. Yeah, it is. But if you believe that Darwin's right, and those that evolve are those that are most susceptible to change, then you're going to come out on the winning side of history, because it's all about change right now. Saturn entered into Aquarius earlier this year, retrograded, it's back into Capricorn, so it will be going into Aquarius again. When Pluto goes into Aquarius in a few years, when Jupiter goes into Aquarius in a while, the more planets we get into Aquarius, the more it sets the stage for the age of Aquarius. And while that age is not here, this is definitely the forerunner to it. Now, Aquarius energy is innovative. Aquarius energy is intelligent. Aquarius energy is the mind. The last 2,000 years have been emotions. It's been the Piscean age. Soon we are going to grow into the Aquarian age, which is the age of the mind. So if you look back on the last 2,000 years and you see how much things have been emotionally driven, then think about how much things are going to be mentally driven the next few thousand years. On one hand, that's going to be great. It's going to bring a lot of logic and clear thinking and cool-headedness to the situations regarding society. On the other hand, it should scare the bejesus out of you, because there's no flipping emotions involved. Now, the good news is the sign of Aquarius is the sign of the energy bearer, and in older texts, it was known as the sign of the water bearer. So emotions are not exactly absent and cold, but rather relegated to second. So everything that we're going through now are the dying vestiges of an old age, the age of Pisces. That's why this is so intense. That's why this is so deep. That's why everything is happening the way it is. We're not just, in the United States, we're not just settling up karma over the last 248 years. We stand at the precipice of settling up karma from the last 2,000 years, because we're addressing things like slavery that have been around for thousands of years. We're addressing things like racism, which has been around thousands of years. We're not addressing just things that have happened in the last couple centuries. We're talking about things that have been going on for eons. So yeah, all of this is coming crashing down all at once. I flippin' love it. I don't like the pain that people are being caused. I don't like all the bullshit that we've got to wade through to fix us as a species, but I do enjoy the fact that we are getting shit fixed, and that I'm a part of it, and that I'm taking this journey with you. So I hope these thoughts have given you a lot of things to think about, maybe some new perspectives for your magical work and your activity in your communities, wherever they may be. For digital classes having to do with psychic protection, check out my website, 418ascended.com. My book, Psychic Protection, is still readily available from Manian Press. My new astrology workbook's coming out in just a few days. So if you're in the U.S., you can get on the pre-order list through Pathways in St. Louis, Missouri. They ship all over the nation. If you're not in the U.S., you can order it online. So definitely check it out. Any questions, post them in the comments. And I think that's it. I'm pretty easy to find. So if there's anything you want to know more about, or if there's anything you want to check out, hit me up. Until then, cool is the rule. How about that for a philosophy? Thanks.